Reports from Hamburg, Germany, and Russia, analyzing President Trump's first face-to-face meeting with Vladimir Putin at the G20 summit, looking into Paul Manafort's business dealings in Russia and around the world, and examining the Kremlin's crackdown on protesters. On Assignment with Richard Engel, premiering Friday at 9 on MSNBC.
But I want to ask about his meeting with President Putin that is coming up next week, that has just been confirmed by Gary Cohn and HR McMaster. And a definitive answer from you on whether the president will bring up election interference. It is clearly the biggest topic between the U.S. and Russia right now, the fact that Moscow meddled in the election. Is the president going to press Putin on that?
Obviously, I'm not going to get ahead of the president's conversation, as we typically do. I would imagine we'll have a readout after that conversation takes place.
Well, you know, you don't always have readouts. So, will the two presidents formally converse or ignore the humongous Russiagate elephant in the room? Will they exchange a white-knuckled, finger-crushing handshake a la Macron? For now, we can only speculate. And back with me to do that, Malcolm Nance and Naveed Jamali. All right, I'll start with you, Malcolm. The Guardian has written that National Security Council staff have been tasked with proposing deliverables for the first Trump-Putin encounter, including the return of two diplomatic compounds Russians were ordered to vacate by the Obama administration in response to Moscow's interference in the 2016 election. Former administration officials said it's not clear what Putin would be asked to give in return. Your thoughts?
Well, Putin doesn't have to give anything because he's already gave him an election. Let me tell you something. The Donald Trump watches this program. We all know that now. So I'm going to say something directly to Donald Trump. Do not cross the good faith of the people of the United States. If you propose to raise sanctions and you come out of there like you two guys are best friends, we know when a gambling addict meets his bookie that he is going to be very cordial to him. So I suspect that there won't be any elbowing people out of the way to get in front of the camera, but there may be to get right next to Vladimir Putin and to start looking like his BFF.
Yeah. And Naveed, you're fond of saying that, in order to understand Russia, you have to try to think like Russia, think like the way they think, not the way we think about it. What would Russia possibly want out of this meeting other than to essentially have the sanctions undone, which it looks like Trump wants to do?
They're loving this. I mean, this is, the U.S. is in chaos. We're essentially in a free fall. We look like the world's biggest dysfunctional family to the rest of the world. So if I was Putin, and remember, Putin was, as Malcolm has pointed out in the past, was a mid-level KGB officer. And he thinks like a mid-level KGB officer. So I think that he's very good at manipulation. He's very good at sort of working people. I think all he has to say to Donald Trump is, Mr. President, you're right. They're against you. And that's all you need to do to keep this chaos flowing. I mean, that's all he has to say. He's so susceptible to this stuff.
And Malcolm, how much of a bounty would a foreign leader be when you were still in the intelligence collection business? Would it be to have a foreign leader who tweets his every thought all day long and is so open with his emotions? I mean, Donald Trump was rage tweeting about half a dozen of them this morning.
Well, it's not so much about getting the mindset of that foreign leader. It's how your nation and your nation state and its intelligence agencies can manipulate that foreign leader because he's an open book. Everyone knows that Donald Trump always eventually comes out and confesses to whatever it is that he's done, except for those exceptional things that he wants to hide. And you can play him. It's not the U.S. Congress he has to worry about. It's Kim Jong-un. It's Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin has this man on puppet strings. Let's just be honest. And we all know that when this thing, if it doesn't come off as grim-faced, not shaking hands, anything shy of that, then everyone in the world is going to assume Donald Trump is in debt to Vladimir Putin. And Vladimir Putin is going to play to Donald Trump's weaknesses. Absolutely. And he's going to come away from this meeting, even if it's just a handshake and a grin, just saying to Trump, let's do something economic. Let's get you onto that growth track. Russia has a lot of oligarch money. Let's do it. And Trump will be susceptible to that message.
Yeah. And I mean, and Naveed, just from the preponderance of the evidence that you've seen so far, a lot of people do say that, what does Putin have on Trump? And that is sort of a rhetorical question that they assume there is something. Is there any way of knowing if he already has something, or it is just the knowledge that Trump is susceptible to his wiles?
I think it's that, but certainly, does Trump believe Putin has anything on him? He may not even have it. That fear may be enough to sort of, you look for control, you look for leverage, and just the fear that Trump may have, that not knowing what the Russians may have, may be enough. Look, if you believe Flynn was recruited by the Russians, I happen to feel that there's a strong possibility of that. one could say that the Russians were able to turn him by just putting him at a table sitting next to Vladimir Putin. My goodness, if you let Vladimir Putin speak to Trump, what concessions, what control could he exert? I mean, the man is, what we can say about Vladimir Putin, he is very good at manipulation. He's a master at it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to shift really quick. Go ahead, Malcolm.
All right. One quick comment. You know, the State Department was tasked out to give up a list of deliverables. Deliverables are a component of a contract. Okay? That means that you feel that you have to draft up things which Russia would want and needs. So, you know, that term itself is almost indicative. If I were to see this activity in another foreign country, and I had to write up an analysis on it, I would say that these people are already beholden to that entity, and they're, you know, giving them something tangible.
And Naveed, lastly, what then do the members of the other group of 7 members do? I mean, Donald Trump has already shown no respect to the leaders of Montenegro, of France, of et cetera. He's dissed them. He's ridden in golf carts when they were walking. I mean, what should they do? How do they respond to Trump at this point?
That's a very good question. I mean, the good news, I think, about this, Joy, is that if we look at what Donald Trump has actually been able to accomplish since he's become president, there's not much there. So how much power he really has back here, I think they understand that, so they know and have some confidence that he's not going to be able to push too much through here. Yeah, that his incompetence is going to be their shield. That's right. Fascinating. Malcolm Nance and Naveed Jamali. Come back soon, as in next week. Thank you guys very much. And up next, the Senate has gone home and Obamacare is still the law of the land. More AM Joy after the break.
There's nothing more important to me than my vacation. So when I need to book a hotel room, I want someone that makes it easy to find what I want. Booking.com gets it. And with their price match, I know I'm getting the best price every time. Now I can start relaxing even before the vacation begins.
Your summer vacation is very important. That's why Booking.com has great offers, up to 40% off now through July 4th. Find great deals now at Booking.com. Booking.yeah.
I have a lot of hair, but it's thin.
I'm just a girl with thin hair, balding, and I'm not even that old.
My hair in the front, it's bald.
Now you can get full hair instantly with Topic Hair Building Fibers, the #1 instant solution for fine or thinning hair.